Hey, let's see here. Let me take the banner off. Now, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good. I'm kind of tired.
I know. I bet. I've been up
Yeah.
pretty early too.
Yeah. So how's
Yeah.
everything going?
Can't complain at all. How are things on your end?
Busy,
Yes.
but pretty good.
That's
Yeah.
good. That's good.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh man, the year is flying. We saw each other almost 2
I
months ago,
know.
but it doesn't seem like that.
I know. And then with my son, he'll be out of kindergarten. He'll be graduating from kindergarten on May 7th. And
Oh
that has come
wow.
by so fast to me.
I know. Same here. My daughter's in kindergarten too, so she finishes up May 24th on her side, and then it's
Oh
summertime.
wow.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's cute. They're so cute at that age.
I
Mine's kind of
know.
naughty.
Exactly, losing their teeth and everything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I guess we can go ahead and get started. I have Tiffany Ashton on here. She volunteered to be on my live video today. So I'm going to allow her to take the floor. We actually met sometime last year. I took her course, the CTM course. It is clinical trial manager course. It is very detailed, very great. She has a great team. I love it. I recommend her course. So I'm not going to say any more. I'm going to let her have the floor. And if you want to introduce yourself and how you got from point A to point B, and
Yeah, sounds great. Well, thanks so much for the opportunity, Alicia, to be here. So I got started in the industry, the clinical research industry, over 20 years ago, right out of high school, back in the summer of 20. Well, it's 2000 actually, back in the summer of 2003, when I was going off to college and I needed a job to kind of supplement my financial aid at the time. And so I was really looking for something that I could do that was pretty easy to me. And so I was really good in the admin, like administrative assistant type role, answering phones, answering emails at the time, opening and signing for packages. So I applied for a admin role at a site management organization, which is within the clinical research space. And when I first got there, I really didn't know what was going on at all. But as I learned and observed more, I realized that our office was the headquarters for clinical research coordinators who help really facilitate the study and work alongside the principal investigators or sub-investigators to make sure that the patients are enrolled according to the standards set out by a sponsor company like Merck or Pfizer or Johnson and Johnson. And so at that time, that was my first exposure. And so I was like, oh, this is cool. Let me learn more about it. And so they gave me the opportunity to really shadow. And within about 4 months, I was moving over from that admin assistant to the clinical research coordinator, a junior role, and allowed to, really help facilitate the studies, working alongside the doctors. So that was my first exposure, really fell into it because I never, ever knew about clinical research and what it took to get a drug to market previously. Yeah, so that was my first experience, first exposure.
Wow. You have an amazing background, and I learned a lot from your. I hear my son in there screaming. He's having a party by
Yes,
himself.
no worries.
I learned a lot from your course. So, with the way the industry is right now, I just had a conversation with someone else yesterday. It was Ashley. It's a bit tight and a bit competitive. What do you advise future candidates to do? Because I know at one point in time, they were like, I've heard you say apply to smaller biotech companies, pharma companies. What do you advise them to do now if they're looking to be a CTM or a CRA going to CTM role?
Yeah. So it's a 4-prong approach right now in this market, April 2024. Long gone is where you could just submit your resume and people are calling you the next day.
Yep.
You will have to be aggressive, submit multiple resumes, but there's a couple of caveats there. You have to make sure, number one, that your resume is optimized for the role that you are looking to go into, but also have the experience for. So for instance, I was speaking to someone who has a background in data management, 9 years of data management, but wants to go into the clinical trial manager space. And I said, right now, it's going to be tight to make that transition. But what would be more strategic is to go into a new company with your data management background, but also voice upfront that you are looking and interested in transitioning to the CTM role in the future. So you have to know right now where the industry is. If you want to be a CRA and you have no previous CRA experience, it's going to be very, very hard. But if you do have some experience, maybe as a CTA or another role, go into a company. And I do still say small to mid-sized companies as a CTA, and voice that you want to eventually get to a certain role and work your way to that role. So right now, you have to be ready for the marathon, not the sprint just to the role that you want to be in, because a lot of companies are laying off and there's a lot of competition. And so, maybe before, when you could have just easily got to the role that you wanted, you have to be more strategic. So
I agree with that.
So it's your resume. It's making sure you're applying to the positions that you best qualify for at this moment in time with the long-term goal. It is education. So like for senior CRAs and senior CTAs, sometimes their managers will give them the opportunity to be promoted within. And so if you've had those conversations, you do want to prepare yourself for the role because they're taking a chance on you. Hey, we think you do good work. We're interested in giving you an opportunity to be a CTM. You should
and this is where your course would come in for sure.
Exactly, to prep them. So, because they're giving you a chance. So come with your A game. Don't come in and then asking them, hey, I got a question on every single point of the day. Because then that's we took a chance on the wrong person who's not, like a go-getter. So get that knowledge. So that's where the knowledge is so key. And if you're new to the research industry and you want to get in, there's plenty of opportunities as research assistants, clinical research coordinators as well, but you have to get the knowledge. What is good clinical practice? What is ICH? What is informed consent? You cannot apply to these roles in this market right now not knowing anything about clinical research, because they can choose right now. It's a employer's market. They get to choose the person that has the best experience, the most experience, the least
Mhm.
amount of salary that they're asking for. They get
Yeah.
to pick and choose. So you really have to bring your A game in this market in any way that you can.
Yeah.
Um, and the last thing is networking. A lot of people
Mhm.
underestimate that you have people that you've worked with on previous teams that are now at different companies. Reach
Mhm.
out to them and say, hey, I'm open. I'm looking for my next role. Do you have any openings at your company? And a lot
Mhm.
of times what they will say is, yes, there was an opening. Can you send me your resume?
Yeah.
And that person hand walking you in or giving your resume to the right person is so much better than you just applying and you being applicant number 250 towards this one role. So
Yeah.
this is strategy. You have to do the strategies right now.
Yeah, because I've noticed like on LinkedIn, whenever I even go to apply for CTM roles, I mean, you already have like 100 applicants that have already applied, 200 applicants. So you'll definitely get lost in the mix. And it's best to know,
Mhm.
network with the recruiter or even the hiring manager.
Yep.
So, and I don't, maybe sending a cold message would not necessarily be, I guess it
Sometimes.
depends. It depends on what you say when you connect with them. You know, have a good conversation, and then just maybe leading up to saying, "Hey, this is what I'm looking to do," and listing all the your experience, and then kind of going from there. Just forming that relationship with them,
Yeah.
I think is key.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a elevator pitch even in your connection request. Hi, my name is Alicia. I have over 5 years experience in the following roles. My ultimate
Mhm.
goal is to be in this role. I would love to connect with you. And just start it like that elevator pitch. That's why it's so important to have that down
Mhm.
there. And to your point about those 200 or so applicants to these openings,
Uh-huh.
sometimes they're the people that I mentioned that don't have the experience, but just throwing kind of spaghetti against the wall, and they're bogging
Uh-huh.
down that whole process for those that do have the experience. So I know sometimes it's like, let me just apply to everything. But as a hiring manager, when I get those resumes, it's like, ugh, this person is wasting my time. Like,
Yeah.
like it's not the right. Did they read
Right.
the like job descriptions, like kind of
Mhm.
thing. So,
Mhm. Mhm.
it's best. Sometimes, people do get lucky, but in this competitive market, kind of stick to what you can get in easy, because it's just going to alleviate your frustration too, with, looking for months or weeks and saying, I can't get
Mhm.
anything. And
Yeah.
lots of times you're applying kind of outside of your scope.
And see, I originally I was just kind of throwing spaghetti at the walls. I wasn't
Mhm.
being strategic with applying. And then whenever I actually narrowed down what I really wanted to do, and I took my course, then that helped out quite a bit.
Mhm.
So I know with ClinEssentials, they offer resume review and assistance. And I know you helped me with mine, which it was awesome. It was very
Mhm.
thorough, very just excellent work.
Mhm.
So, what major concerns do you see with resumes now, whenever you're actually reviewing them, whenever
Yeah.
you're critiquing them?
Yeah, it's a great question, Alicia. So the biggest thing is the how you set the tone for your resume. At the
Mhm.
top, you want to have a professional summary, your elevator pitch. Who are you and what are you looking to do? So for me, mine would say, I've a clinical research professional with over 20 years. Put your
Mhm.
years, 3 years, 4 years, 10 years. That years is so important to put up front. I'm a clinical research professional with over 20 years of experience across the following roles. So if you've done multiple roles, list those out, because remember, they're looking for a potential employee that has the most amount of experience. So if you list out you've been a research coordinator, a CTA, an in-house CRA, they're like, boom, boom, boom. If we ever needed someone to wear multiple hats, this person can do it because
Mhm.
they know the
Right.
previous roles. You also want to say, I call it name dropping. You want to do phase 1 through 4 studies in
Mhm.
oncology, CNS, rare disease. Throw some of those key hot topics, vaccines, but they want to know, what studies did you work on? What indications, and what did you do? Did you do study startup, study closeout, study maintenance? Throw that in there. Did you do some study document creation? Add a couple points. And then you want to end it with, what are you looking to do? I want to continue to lead a trial or be a global clinical trial leader to lead the study to success and deliver high quality results within study budget and study timelines. You're ending it with what you're looking and what you're wanting to do. So now the person knows how many years of experience you've coming with, how many, like what indications, what phases, some of the key things that you've done in your roles, and then what you're looking to do. And a lot of times I don't see that. When I look at resumes, I'm like, it's a lot of fluff. It's detail oriented, professional who works very well with teams. Yes, that's great. But what I need more. And so if your professional summary has the fluff and not the nitty gritty of what someone would be looking for, it's like you kind of go to the no pile or to the maybe pile, and then they're keep going.
Yeah.
You may have 30 seconds to a minute to captivate their attention. And if your professional summary is really good, then they're like, okay, let me read more. And then you can go down to education and certifications, your professional work history. A lot of times I see, skills and proficiencies up front. But if your professional summary is good, you don't need to turn around and do professional summary with your good summary and then do the skills and the proficiencies. Move that to the end and go right into your work history and then go from there. So that's what I see the biggest when I am looking at resumes. The other thing is, if you have been in the industry for over 20 years or over 15 years, make sure that is reflected on your resume. Do not cut off 10 years, and anything older than 10 years, don't cut it off your resume, because you will get caught up potentially if a recruiter calls you and says, oh, how many years of industry experience you have? And you say, oh, 25. And they're like, well, I only see 10 years on here. You may be flagged for a fraudulent candidate, or you could be cutting off something that would be key. Maybe they're looking for someone that has study startup experience, and that was on year 12, and you cut that off. Now you limited your what you are capable of too. So that's another misconception I've been seeing going around. Don't cut off anything off your resume.
And see, that goes on to kind of piggyback off of what you're saying, like your resumes. I've heard people say, oh, your resume shouldn't be 1 to 2 pages. Well, if you have 20 years of experience in the clinical research industry or whatever industry you're in, you're not going to have a 1 to 2 page resume. Exactly. Now, it needs to be on point and on key whenever you are applying to specific roles. You don't need to, let's say, for instance, if I worked at Burger King, maybe, and I've got like for 20 years of experience in lab, and now I've got almost 4 years of experience in clinical research. I don't think that at that point, Burger King would be relevant to the.
No, you don't. You don't want to put that.
You need to leave off.
Yeah. Like my resume doesn't go back to my high school days of working at Quiznos and Domino's Pizza. No, it's not relevant to the role. However, so you do want to keep it relevant. If it's anything in healthcare, customer service, depending on the role, possibly sales or quality assurance, put it on there depending on what you're what you're going out for. But if it's something that's so unrelated, I've seen, like, if you were a teacher or, like a substitute teacher, I wouldn't put that on there. Keep it related to research, customer service, medical, etc.
Yes. Charles says, thanks for hosting this. Glad I can make it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm happy you're here, Charles.
Exactly.
Let's see. What else this is making me feel like I made the right decision with my resume recently, formatting it like this.
Yep.
Well, I'm glad we're helping
Yeah. Yeah. And I
Yes.
hear a lot of people that come out, they're like, I've spent hundreds on my resume. I spent thousands on my resume.
Mhm.
And the biggest tip is if the person is not in the clinical research industry, they don't
Mhm.
know the nuances. You cannot pay them big dollars, big dollars to format a clinical research related resume. Please, please, please save yourself.
I
Um,
did that not
yeah,
long ago, and whenever my resume was done, I thought, and I think I had someone else, maybe it was you that reviewed, I can't
yeah,
remember.
I think I
It
did.
didn't Yeah, it didn't have enough information on it that, that was relevant to what I was trying to do. So,
Yeah,
um, as she said, please go to somebody that's in the research industry that knows what they're doing and they've got a good reputation for
yeah,
helping people and ensuring that you're successful.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
But
There and yeah, I see that a lot. And it's unfortunate because, sometimes people will think in their desperation of finding a job, they're just like,
yeah,
well, let me pay for. But I tell you, it's almost like if you have a Mercedes car, you're not going to go to Jiffy Lube to get your car done. You're going to go to a
no,
Mercedes
you're
dealer,
not.
right? Same kind of thing. Same kind of thing. If you have a certain car, a Lamborghini
Uh-huh,
car, you
uh-huh.
can't just go to anyone to get your car
Nope,
serviced. Same thing.
that's
If you're
right.
looking to be in clinical research, you cannot just go to a regular resume service because
Mhm.
a lot of people, even us before we started, we never even knew this whole industry existed. So they are not going to be well versed with the
Mhm.
clinical research resumes and
Right,
what we're looking for.
right.
Yeah.
Um, let's see here. Let's see. He said, "Oh, LaShawn Sanders. Hey, Tiffany,
Hi.
hopping on to say thanks to both for sharing."
Yeah.
Absolutely. Is it
Yes.
LaShawn
Yeah,
Sanders?
LaShawn.
LaShawn. Well, hello. You're
Yes,
welcome.
yes. She does a great CRC training as well for those that are
I
in, I
saw
think,
that.
Florida. Yep.
I think she had like 200 applicants and
Yep.
had to shut it down. I was like, wow, that's pretty amazing.
Yep,
That is amazing.
exactly. Yeah, we both, I know LaShawn does. I spoke with her many times. We love training and sharing our knowledge with others, especially coming behind
Mhm.
us. If we can help shave off some of the trial and error and sweating and
Yes,
anxiety that we went through,
yes,
like, yeah, why not?
yes, yes. Let's see,
Yeah.
Charles, he said, that's how I was feeling. I feel so seen. People outside the field sometimes be talking crazy about what you need on the
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the other thing, and on my LinkedIn page, I bookmarked a couple resume tips. You want to outline your clinical trial systems that you worked in. So
Mhm.
Viva Vault, Rave, Oracle. Those are key terms because sometimes a potential employer is looking for someone who has Flex Global ETMF experience. And if they do a
Mhm.
control find, your resume is coming up. So
Mhm.
don't just say TMF systems, define them because that could be the make or break with you getting a call back, as well as your therapeutic area experience. Create a section, put, cardiology, hypertension, phase 2. Do the next one, oncology, breast cancer, phase 1. A lot of times employers would do a control find too. And if you have your therapeutic areas listed out, that could move you to the front of the list.
So that kind of brings me to the topic of the ATS system. She says, "Hi, hey, great session. Say again, Tiffany." Hello. Oh, let's see here. LaShawn said, "Hey, nice to see you." She said,
Yes,
"Yes." They're having a party in this.
I know they are.
Um, so the ATS system, is there a such thing? Because I've seen so many articles written about beating the ATS system. Is that such a thing? Or is it just that you need to have key terms that are relevant to what you've done in your resume? So whenever the recruiters do like the control find or whatever, they can pull up whatever they need to find or the right candidate. Is that true or?
Yeah, so there is most of the bigger companies like the Icon, the IQVIA, the ones that you have to create a whole profile to submit and apply for a role. Those are linked with ATS systems where they take your resume. And I believe there may even be a bigger database where all of those companies are pulling or will have the same access to the same resume. I kind of believe that. I haven't had it confirmed yet, but there is something with when you submit your resume to those portals and create a profile, it saves it. And so, because a lot of times if you go back 6 months later, they'll say, do you want to apply with this previous resume, or do you want to go ahead and upload another one? So in regards to trying to beat it, trying to beat it is more so making sure that your resume is formatted to the role that you're trying to apply to. So when they are looking for candidates, they are programming, we're looking for someone who has phase 1 experience, a clinical trial manager, maybe a CRA. So they're clicking. And so that's going to be associated with the ATS output. So sometimes when you apply and you get an automatic decline, or you're not a good fit, you're like, I know someone wasn't just looking at the resume right then and there. That was the ATS system based off of the specifications that they plugged in that kicked you out automatically. So it's almost like a filtering system, and it kind of filters you out, because how else are they going to get through 200 resumes in a realistic time if it doesn't filter out based off of years of experience? Do you have a degree? If it's asking for a degree, do you have a PhD? All of these things can be programmed in. So if you apply to a role and you don't have a PhD, or you don't have 5 years of experience, it's going to automatically kick you out.
So that's why it's really important to read the job description. Make sure you read the job description thoroughly. That way first of all, you know that you're qualified for the job. And then you're also, you know what they're looking for. And maybe you can hope for the best and not get the rejection letter. One trick, let's see, he says, one trick I use is putting a bunch of buzzwords in the job descriptions in white font on my resume so they're invisible.
And so is that what gets you through the ATS system, Charles? I'm not sure. I don't know if that, how has that been? I mean, it could work, but in white font, it's more so better to have them visible. I don't know, like but the better thing is, what I really like to use is Indeed.com. Aside from LinkedIn, you do have to diversify. So Indeed.com, I like to go on there and peruse when I've been looking for roles, because a lot of times they will have a contact information, or their apply now is about 3 steps. And it's like, upload your resume, answer 2 questions, and your submission is off. So I like to apply and diversify your applying so you can get into those roles that may be easier to apply, that maybe you have the name of a contact sometimes within the job description, or you may have the name of the company that's hiring. And if it's a small research site, you could be bold and take your resume in and talk to the office manager and see if you could just talk about that role right then and there. That's going to set you apart. So, you have to look up for ways to set yourself apart from others.
So let me back up a little bit. Clinical trial manager, can you explain, like, I call it a day in the life of a CTM? That way, again, my audience, I'm trying to get the information out there and explain to them like what all these roles are and what they mean. Because again, like with myself, I didn't know any of this stuff existed. You just know about, clinical trials, and that's it. So with that being said, can you explain like the day in the life of a CTM?
Yeah. And I think to your point, Alicia, I may take it a step back, because when I first came in, I talked about the clinical research coordinator, also called CRC, or study coordinator role. They work at the clinic. So at the doctor's office. Some doctor's offices within their own practice, they have like a research department where they do research studies, and then they have their own practice in the same building. So they're seeing patients for their own practice, and then on certain days they'll see research patients. So a clinical research coordinator typically works in the clinic with the doctor, their right hand to facilitating the clinical research protocols. So that's the site level. Then above, and who comes in to monitor the site, is the clinical research associate. We also call them the monitors. And those are like, think of them as auditors. They're coming in and they're seeing, hey, did this doctor enroll the right patients? Did this study coordinator perform the right assessments? So that's what the CRA, our monitor, does. And a lot of people want to be that role because they travel. They get to travel from site to site, and they typically work from home. Now, remember, the study coordinator in the clinic with the doctor, they typically don't work from home because they have to be in the clinic. So that's in the clinic, their
on-site.
On-site role. The monitor, who's like the auditor, they travel around, so they typically are remote and they travel a lot. But the travel's not fun travel usually, because sometimes you have to get on site 2 to 3 days every week. This week, next week, every week of the month. You don't get to choose, okay, I want to go out on the 1st and the 15th and then maybe the 23rd and just do a little bit of travel. Your responsibility is you have to be out there ongoing all the time. So that's the CRA role. Now, who is over the CRA is the CTM, the clinical trial manager. And that clinical trial manager is overseeing the entire study. So they may have multiple CRAs or monitors under them. They may have 5 to 10, depending on the site, depending on the study. And then they may have 50 clinics, 50 sites, 50 different investigators that are working on the study. And the CTM, the clinical trial manager, is managing that whole landscape, making sure everything is running. So a typical day for a CTM could be, let me look at my calendar. What calls do I have? Who am I meeting with? Am I meeting with another party, like a department, like data management? Am I meeting with the sponsor representative from Merck or Johnson & Johnson to give them an update on the study? I usually, as a CTM, you typically are in meetings about half of your day. So that's about, you want to look to see what meetings you have, and then you want to prepare for those meetings. Sometimes you have to create a slide deck, a PowerPoint slide deck to give updates, or, talk about issues, get your talking points together about what you're going to talk about in that meeting. The other half of the day, you're responding to emails that could be coming in from various departments. It could be coming in from the doctor. Hey, I have a medical issue with one of the patients. I need to talk to the medical monitor on the study. And so you're coordinating a call between those two parties, the doctor and the medical monitor who's overseeing the study. Your CRAs who are traveling, they could be having an issue on site. And so you have to help them. So it's a lot of firefighting in a day. It's like, okay, let me follow up with this person. Let me help this person. That's what you're doing. But ultimately, you're also having to keep in mind the overarching study and the deliverables and the timelines to make sure that the study stays on track, and identify any risk, and then how to mitigate those risks too. So that's like in a quick and dirty CTM, what do you do in a day? And one task you could go down a rabbit hole, and you could be over here trying to figure out an answer to something, or trying to figure out new solutions for recruiting patients, because recruitment is slow. And so it could take you a while just to work through all of those things. By the time you look up, it's 5 o'clock. You're like, oh, I'll come back and start it over again.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Yes.
So it looks like we have a question. What kinds of positions, from Charles, tend to be fully remote in this field? I know some of the remote roles or the remote positions, I wouldn't say it's completely going away, but it's kind of diminishing a little bit. There's still some out there though. I have some background in training in clinical research, but also academic medical writing. So I was hoping for something like a liaison, doing slide decks, like you mentioned, or maybe preparing EDC templates or SOPs.
Yeah. So there are some roles that are remote. So the clinical trial manager role is typically remote. You may have to you may have to travel like 10 to 15%, depending on the stage of the study. So when the study is starting up, you may have to travel more for like kickoff meetings and investigators meetings. But once the study is on, you're pretty much, staying put. So the CTM is one role that is typically remote. The data manager role is typically remote as well. So data management. Medical writing, like you mentioned, that is something that you could do, and that's typically a remote position. SOPs. Now, you may want to research in your area or just kind of into the SOP writing, because I can tell you that that could be a good avenue to go, especially if you get really good in writing SOPs for the site level, as well as for CROs and sponsors that may need to, they could be just starting out, or they could be looking to refresh their SOPs. That could be an area that you can work into. So in EDC templates, that's typically, they will do it based off of the EDC system that will be used on the study. So I would say data management, like the actual role, would more so do the EDC templates. So you have some options, but CRA is typically remote. That's the one you have to travel. CRC, not remote, that's on site. And then CTA, you do have to be careful with that one, because a lot of people, they want to be a clinical trial assistant, but the clinical trial assistant role is typically a hybrid or on-site role, because you're going to be in charge of sending out binders, sending out supplies to sites, and you can't do that from your home. So you need to at least be in the office a couple of days, or they may want you to be in office the entire time.
Excellent. This is so good. You're always so thorough. I'm telling you guys, you need to connect with Tiffany if you haven't already. And if you need her information, I will give it to you. I'm still not good at, I could have copied and pasted this, but I can still do it to you. But let's see here. As far as the interview process, I learned from you that he said, thanks so much. Super helpful answers. Absolutely.
Thank you.
I learned from you that whenever you are going through the interview with the recruiter, you don't need to make it like a 5-minute long interview. You need to 60 seconds, about a minute.
Yeah.
As you are talking to the recruiter, you're basically giving a synopsis of your resume from where you started to where you are now and where you want to be. And highlighting the most things. And you don't need to even go into details about what you've done, just highlighting that. How do you feel, or not how do you feel about it, but that's something that I know you educate students on.
Yeah. So typically interviews are about 30 minutes or so. And again, that elevator pitch, I'll keep saying that you got to get your background together in about 1 minute or less. You got to be able to regurgitate that very quickly, very seamlessly, and it cover the full spectrum, the years of experience, the roles that you've done, the phases, some of the indications, and what you're looking to go into next. If you have that together, that sets the tone for your interview. If you drag that down, you're already losing the person you're talking to. And the reason is, it's almost a test. You may not realize it, but it's a test. How quickly can you get straight to the point and communicate what needs to be communicated? And if
Mm-hmm.
you're in certain roles like the CTM role, you're going to be speaking, presenting, all of those things often, and you're going to be running and chairing meetings. You got to get down to the point. You can't
Mm-hmm.
believe we can't sit here 15 minutes for you to get to a 2 sentence thought. So it's almost a test if you're going out for certain roles, the way that you start off and kick off the that interview. And it gives you more confidence when you have it down pat and you're like, oh yeah, this is me. If you already start getting nervous, yeah, I can bet that the rest of you're going to be, rattled on any other question that may come
Yes.
your way. So you have to be settled, poised, ready to go, because they're going to always ask you in any role, tell me about yourself. And you want to be able to quickly get down to the point, and that's going to set the tone. And if you need to further elaborate later, they'll ask you, well, when you were an unblinded CRA, can you tell me a little bit more about what you did? If you just gave them a snippet up front, they'll ask you if they're curious later
Mm-hmm.
about
Yes.
more. But yeah, that's
Right.
how you set the tone. And you want to be bubbly, not too crazy bubbly, but you want to be upbeat. You don't want to be, see how you want to be upbeat. I'm upbeat right now. You don't want to be like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
okay. And they're like, does this person want to be here? You're like, yeah, I worked in the industry for about 10 years now. And they're like, okay. Like that's again another test. How are you going to be
Mm-hmm.
with on the phone with others that you're interacting with? And they're looking to see your personality.
So, with that being said, you kind of gave us a synopsis of your history, of your job description. Can you
Yeah.
give an example on how you're supposed to speak to the recruiter? Okay, Tiffany, we can role play now.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about yourself? So, you guys, she has it down to the T and she's
Yeah.
really good at it. So, take the tips from her and learn something.
Yeah, yeah. So thanks so much, Alicia, for giving me some time today. My name is Tiffany Ashton, and I have been in the clinical research industry for over 20 years now. I first got my start as a CRC. And over the years, I've also been in the CRA role as well as the unblinded CRA role. I've been a CTM, lead CRA, and I've worked in the PM space as well, both on the sponsor and CRO sides across phase 1 through 4 studies, indications of oncology, rare disease, and vaccine, women's health. Pretty much a lot of the indications I've touched, there hasn't been one that I haven't. And I've worked from study startup all the way through the closeout. So the final clinical study report and ETMF delivery. And so I'm here today just to interview for the CTM position that you advertised. And,
Thanks so
and
much, Tiffany. And bravo.
yeah,
That's it.
exactly. So that's your tell me about yourself. I didn't go line by line, position by position. I kept
Mhm.
them engaged. I gave them enough summary. I gave them buzzwords, study startup through closeout. All of those things are buzzwords. Now they can dive in further if they want to, but that gives them a great overview of what I'm bringing to the table.
Yes. So we have thank you so much, Tiffany, for
Yeah,
that.
no worries.
So we have Brian Mitten. He is asking, do you think the industry is going in the direction of the CRA monitors traveling less due to increase? This is a good question. Increased use of digital source, electronic EMR, etc.
You would think, Brian.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, you would think, Brian, but no, I don't think we would. In certain indications, if there's a lot of previous data on the drug, there will be less monitoring. But phase 1, we're still, learning about the drug, the safety, the efficacy, the tolerability. We can't take off the pedal off the gas. We have to be right there as monitors and still do that 100% SDV, sometimes risk-based monitoring. So yes, we're moving in the direction where in some instances we will be able to do less monitoring, but not all instances across the board. So I definitely think if you're with a company that has a lot of good products that are up and coming, there's still the need to gather the information and have that monitor spot check and double check that what was collected is correct. So yeah, we're not going away. And I'm trying to gauge. I can't remember, Alicia. I know we had at the SOS conference, we talked about the great debate between paper and electronic source. But there's still at least 50% of the industry, if not more, that's still paper. Like everyone has not converted to digital. And so if everyone hasn't converted, we can't make that as a standard across the board that CRAs are traveling less to because of the electronic source being available, because not everybody has electronic source.
That's right.
Yeah.
Let's see. We have, I sure hope so. I'm careless. Charles says, you are both such a treasure for this. You're welcome. We're here to help as much as possible.
Yeah.
Kelvin, Pete, good evening to you.
Hi.
Hi. All right. So it's almost 10 minutes till 7. Okay. I created like a little question that I want the audience to see if they can actually answer. Okay. And let me see if I can do this right.
Okay. Oh, yep. I see it.
This is quiz time.
Okay.
You guys can put your answers in the chat and I will reveal the answer in a little bit. I'll give you a few seconds to answer.
Okay.
So I'm not sure. Can you see this?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So cool. So it's asking, can you name the, I call it the Brahms biomarker that helps physicians determine if sepsis, which is a bacterial infection, if it has developed within the body. So which biomarker will help detect that? Would it be A, your PCT, procalcitonin, the I call it Lumarcrus, or the SFIT PIG ratio cryptor? Put your answers in the chat.
Ooh.
Yeah, I want to see, I like to make this a learning experience because I saw where it looks like some companies are doing this type of clinical trial here. So, and I'm familiar with some of these biomarkers. So I thought this would be a great question to add on here.
Yep.
So I'll give it a few more minutes. I wish I had a drum roll. Drum roll.
Drum roll, please.
All right. Okay, he says Kelvin says PCT. Is there anybody else that wants to answer before I do the big reveal?
Okay. Oh, see?
Pronounce it like it's
Ooh.
Okay. Somebody says C, a dream. She's saying C. Kelvin is saying A. Leukocyte, and those are immune cells. Okay. Let's see here. Are used. All right. The big reveal is actually procalcitonin. Yep. So whenever I worked in the laboratory, a lot of times whenever the patients would spike a temperature, the doctors would order blood cultures, and alongside of that, they would order the procalcitonin to see, if the patient, if there's sepsis within the body. Of course, with the blood cultures, you're going to see the actual organisms that's floating around in the body that's causing the temperature to spike anyway. So it would be the procalcitonin. Now for the answer B, that is I think it's a genetic marker for cancer, lung cancer. And then for C, it is a genetic marker for patients that are pregnant, like with preeclampsia or hypertension, things like that. So that's what this one C test for. So I
Perfect.
hope that was kind of fun answering
Yeah,
that.
it
A
is.
learning experience.
I know, exactly. And sometimes when you're a CTM or a CRA or even a CRC, if you get assigned to a study and they have, different biomarkers than you may be used to, you're
Mhm.
educated on that in the protocol as well as during the SIV
Mhm.
slides. And then sometimes the medical monitor will do a specific presentation to get everyone up to speed as well. So that's always good. In any protocol, I'm always learning something, whether it's
Mhm.
something, even now, 20 years later, I'm always learning something new
Yes.
and intriguing. And that's the more protocols you work on, you get to pick up a piece of information and new teachings along the way. So
Mhm.
that's a good exposure.
Mhm. Perfect. So, do you have any closing remarks, like any tips, or I mean, you've given a lot of tips already.
Yeah.
Words of hope or encouragement. How do you feel the industry is moving, and do you think that we'll see like light at the end of the tunnel?
Yeah, so it's a great question. The industry right now is unique, unlike any time that I've seen, but it's a little bit of a trickle down effect from the COVID time when there was so many COVID studies going, and companies needed a lot of personnel to run all of the studies. But now that those studies are done, they realized,
Mhm.
oh, we have, extra people, like it's, so that's why there's some of them are downsizing. They're looking at, what do we have in our pipeline? How many personnel do we need? And so that's why the industry is having and experience some layoffs. However, I do think that it will pick up, and there are some opportunities out there. But again, like I mentioned at the beginning, you have to make sure your resume is on point. You're searching
Mhm.
for the correct roles and applying for the correct roles. You're networking, and then that you're also making sure you have the knowledge and ready for the roles. So those are some things that you can do to still be successful in this market. And if you're okay in the position that you're in right now, just stay there. Continue to educate yourself
Mhm.
along the way. And
Mhm.
then when the
Mhm.
industry opens back up, then that's when you can make your move. So, like if you would like to be a senior CRA, but you are a CRA right now, just hold on. And then when the industry opens up, there's more availability.
Yep.
At that time, you can ask for that senior CRA title. But if you're employed right now, that's better than not being employed and
Yes,
no
it is.
title, for real. So yeah, so
Yes.
that's one of the things. But those that are actively looking, you have to diversify. A lot of people I've heard, they're like, oh, well, I'm only applying on LinkedIn. Well, LinkedIn is a very competitive. You have to
Yep.
diversify. You
Yep.
have to tap into your network. You have to look
Mhm.
in your area where you're at. So there's a
Mhm.
lot of strategies that you can do. Definitely reach out to myself, Alicia. Follow us, connect with us on LinkedIn if you're not already. Listen to the tips. I always do little videos. I have
Yes.
posts,
Yes.
like I'm always trying to share knowledge. And so, just be careful too before paying a resume service that's not associated with clinical
Mhm.
research to do a
Mhm.
clinical research related resume.
That's
Please,
right.
please, please. In this economy, don't spend the money on
No.
remember, you're not going to take your Mercedes or Lamborghini to Jiffy Lube. You don't
Absolutely.
want to do your resume at a place that does not know clinical research.
And see, another tip that I personally can give out is, I'm still wanting to get into the CTM space.
Mhm,
And so where I'm working now, I have a mentor,
mhm,
and she's actually showing me like which I know what trip reports look like
mhm,
whenever the CRAs complete them,
mhm,
but actually finding trends
mhm,
and mistakes that are made writing the reports.
mhm.
And she is showing me, being very thorough about it. So whenever the time comes for me to speak to that, I'll be able to speak to,
Exactly.
saying, hey, I know what a trip report looks like. I know what trends to look for. And these are some of the mistakes. And this is what we need to do. They're retraining or something. I'll be able to speak to that and not just be blindly going into an interview, not knowing what I need to look for in a trip report.
Exactly. So a perfect example, Alicia, if they ask you, if it's an interviewer ask you, tell me how you would do trip report review. Now, with your knowledge, you have some examples. I'm looking for trends. I'm going to offer retraining if I'm seeing trends, etc. Versus if you're not getting the knowledge, how would you do trip report review? Oh, I've never done it. And that's it. That's how you answer that question. So do you think that they're going to move you on?
Yeah.
Or do you think that they're going to be like, okay, like because when you get hired for a role, they have no time to train. They are saying, here's the work, go. And if you have an idea of how to do it, that's going to be better than someone that is like, oh, I'm going to have to show them every step. So that's why that knowledge is so important, because you never know if they pick up the phone and call you and say, hey, I have your resume. You're right there in a phone screen, and you want to come with the knowledge, because what if you don't get an opportunity for another phone screen? You just kind of blew it there. So be ready with the knowledge, especially if you're applying for certain roles.
That's right. Be ready so you don't have to get ready. Is that the same, or did I say it right?
I think so. Close enough. I think Kelvin had two good questions. Okay, so SFQs
now include a lot of for SFQs now include a lot of biomarkers for determining patient enrollment numbers, especially for phase 1 studies. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, they are. And
then let's see. With the new guidelines requiring diverse participants in clinical trials, how are CROs planning to improve their diversity planning for clinical research studies?
They're still trying to figure it out.
Question.
They're still trying to figure it out. Sponsors and CROs are still trying. It's so new that they're still trying to figure it out. Some may be ahead of the curve, but it takes CRAs, CTMs that are in some of those discussions in the protocol development, to say, okay, how are we going to make sure that we include diverse populations as we're writing the protocol? Like, we're having to change the way that we have thought of things up to this point. And, when we're on autopilot, we're just doing it like we always have done it. But now we do have to start having those conversations. But depending on where the study is, they may not have to have that conversation just yet, because the study protocol is already written and they're not going to change it. But any new protocols, if you're a part of that, and you're on the study team and it's the protocols going back and forth, I challenge you to challenge that. Say, hey, how are we going to include those diverse populations based off of the new regulations? Because it's still a working problem that they're trying to find the solution to. So that, and then I really think that, those research sites that have a minority population, you really need to get vocal on your advertisement and getting yourself out there, because there is a market for sites with diverse populations. So, sometimes there's not a lot of advertising, and sites aren't very known to the sponsors or the CROs on their capabilities. But now is the time that you do a fact sheet, a 1-page fact sheet on what you can do, and be aggressive about getting your information out there.
Wow, let's see, we have one more. Guys, we're actually at 7:00. He says, Kelvin says, amen.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. I would say definitely. Yeah, we could go for hours. We could always go for hours talking.
Oh gosh. But this was great. I'm so happy that we did this live video. It was very educational, very helpful. I appreciate everyone that has hopped on and asked questions and participated. And hopefully we'll have another interview with Tiffany again. Bring your questions to me and let me know what you want to hear and what you want us to talk about, and we can go from there. So with that being said, this is the end. And again, thank you, Tiffany. Thank you, everyone.
No
Everyone
problem.
have a great evening.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.